Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Flixist Movie Review and Review. What we do on here is we take all of the reviews from our website and I thumb them up for you and tell you what we thought about the movies that came out. This week we're talking about The Hustle, Detective Pikachu, and Wine Country. Hi everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're talking about two movies that came out in theaters and one movie that came out in Netflix. We'll start with the biggest review in Detective Pikachu, the Pokemon film. Anthony reviewed this film, and he says, "I can't believe how much I enjoyed the first 90% of the movie. It felt impassioned and real. It resonated with childhood nostalgia while managing to tell a personal story that went beyond most, if not all, video game adaptations. Then the finale destroyed everything that the movie built up, and it left me with a bitter taste in my mouth." Ooh. Anthony was kind of devastated. I have to say, Anthony wasn't the most excited about this. This is a video game movie, and if we all know, video game movies truly don't work. So Anthony was skeptical, and so it was easy to kind of take him by surprise at the beginning, but unfortunately, it left him a little sour. Some of the things he loved, though, he said that the world feels vibrant and lived in. So right from the start, it's easy to sink into a world inhabited by CGI monsters. I completely understand what he's saying here. If the CGI sucked in this movie, there was no way that the movie was going to be good, because you have to think about this. This is a Pokemon movie. It's a movie about Pokemon characters and monsters. The concept of realism is kind of thrown out the window, so you had to nail the CGI, and Anthony thought they did. He says that this movie needs to be seen in a theater. He doesn't know if the CGI is going to really stand the test of time once we get on our tablets and laptops and TVs. So go see it in a theater, he says. Another big take that he took, he said, story-wise, the video game adaptation manages to weave in themes of family, finding time for the one you love, being true to yourself, and never forgetting what it's like to have childlike fun. That's good, because this is a very childish story. So we're glad that hits there. He says that he won't spoil the ending, but for as happy as I was in the movie avoiding cliches and all the tropes that they did not touch on in the first hour and 20 minutes, he says the final 20 minutes was a wash in them. The hits just keep on coming and coming, and it was like watching something beautiful burn. Ouch. It wasn't enough to ruin my enjoyment of the path that led me to the ending, but damn, did it feel like the writers phoned it in at the end. Oh, poor Anthony. So much promise. He also goes on to say, ultimately, I would recommend Detective Pikachu on the grounds that you are taking your family with you, or you have some attachment to the game series. The ending is god-awful and tropey as hell, but the journey there was enjoyable all the same. Kind of sounds like a certain TV show that's going on right now. Dig on Game of Thrones. We talk movies here. To wrap up the review, he gives it 6.5 out of 10, which really isn't too bad. I am planning on seeing this movie this week. I'm interested in it. I'm not the biggest fan of the game or the TV show, so I'm not necessarily the target audience, but I like Ryan Reynolds. He goes on in his review, Anthony talks about how he's not the biggest fan of Ryan Reynolds, but he says he really nails the character of Pikachu, and he was someone that was skeptic of it. So the fact that he won him over tells you it's good. So Detective Pikachu, it's relatively well reviewed. Now we're going on to another movie, The Hustle, starring Rebel Wilson and Anne Hathaway. This was reviewed by Matthew. The Hustle, despite its name change and gender swapping, is often a shot-for-shot remake of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Matt says. I thought it was strange that the studio was distancing itself from one of the greatest comedies of the 80s with all of its marketing. But now it makes sense. If you've seen the first film, then you've pretty much seen this one, so they didn't want anything going out, and they didn't want anyone going out and renting the original. Yikes. Yeah, shot-for-shot remakes have never been something I have really wanted or needed, and I completely understand the frustration. I had no idea that this was a remake of it. It sounded very familiar, and I was like, oh, cool. Another conman job of high class, low class. This sounds familiar. Well, it turns out it was the exact same movie. This is a big part of Matt's review. The film would try to break some new ground, and in fact, when it does diverge from its predecessor, it's actually when the film gets funny. But its stubbornness and adhering to what became before it is its greatest downfall, especially as the film comes to a screeching halt at the end, upending its own themes and destroying its feminist message. yeah, you got to be careful in times like that. You got to follow through. He says, if you're swapping genders, which is a great way to breathe life into something and tackle it from a new angle, you actually have to recognize that the gender swap does something to the character and the plot. And if you're not going to put any effort into it, why do it at all? I completely understand what he's saying. This is making my blood boil just reading. If you're going to do something, have reason behind it. Don't just go lazy. Don't just do the same exact formula. Matt goes on to say, The Hustle is fun enough as a comedy, but it sucks as a remake and as a female-led film. Swapping the genders of the lead actors and then simply giving one character a line the other character had in the first film isn't clever. It's careless. The Hustle had an opportunity to be its own thing and make a comedy statement, but instead, it just simply rested on its laurels, which eventually gets into hotter water than it ever needed to be. And Matthew goes on to give this 5 out of 10. I have no interest in seeing this movie, reading this review. It's just infuriating that you have two incredibly talented people. Anne Hathaway, though some people don't really like her, she is talented and she's doing a really great thing. She's very good in Ocean's 8 as kind of that straight character with people bouncing comedy at. And this is one of the things that Matthew talks about is how she works wonderfully with Rebel Wilson. And Rebel Wilson's hilarious. She can be really good. She can be annoying, I understand. But you had two wonderful actors. Write them their own movie. Be original. Be creative. I feel you, Matthew. Hustle. Ugh. All right. Now we get a chance for me to review a film. I saw Wine Country this weekend on Netflix. Wine Country is a film that is starring Amy Poehler, also directed by Amy Poehler. She throws a 50th birthday party for her friend, and it turns into a reunion weekend of all of her friends. The cast is outstanding. You have Maya Rudolph, Anna Gasteyer, Rachel Dratch, Tina Fey. We'll get to her. I was excited for this film. My fiance was super excited for this film. It's good. You have your lady vehicles. The movie that you can make for women that's not just a remake. Gotcha. Unfortunately, this film is just fine. It's a little disappointing with what my expectations were. I expected something great, a laugh-a-minute film, and it just doesn't get there. It tries to say a lot. It really has a message that I think it's trying to get to, but you could tell it from the moment on. You knew there was a group of women on a trip. Something was going to happen. They probably all were going to bicker, and they were going to have their problems, and then they were going to realize they can all get there together. I've seen this movie a lot. It's not new. It's not creative. It's not anything that changes or breaks the wheel, as you can use as a nice metaphor. And what happens is it basically just turns into a movie that's 1,000 jokes coming at you a minute, and some of them are funny and some of them are just roll your eyes inducing. It wasn't for me, and unfortunately, I was really excited for it, as Parks and Rec is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. This movie will land very hard with 50-year-old women and fans of Fran Drescher and fans of Ani DeFranco, but it just misses the mark in trying to be something of substance. I love Amy Poehler, and I think she's amazing, and she's very good in this film. And there are some moments of very good directing style choices that she's making, and this is just her first film, and I think that there is a ton of room for improvement, and I know and I hope that she continues on. But this film is basically just her directing an improv exercise with some of her and her best friends. It's not great. It's not terrible. I laughed. Tina Fey is the best part of this movie. Every time she walks in, she breathes life into the scene, and it's hilarious. She is outstanding. This film is fine. This film is good. To give it a star rating, I would give it 5 out of 10. It's very mediocre, middle of the line. It is what it is. It is what you'd want it to be. It's just nothing special. It doesn't take it over the top by any means. But it's good fodder for Netflix if you've got nothing else to watch. So this was Flixist, Movie Reviews and Review. I will be back next week as we have a review for John Wick Chapter 3. I am excited. I am jealous. I'm not on the review panel for here, but I might have some views because I'm definitely seeing it first thing. Thank you guys so much. Catch you next week.